The next thing what we're going to do on our form is we're going to make sure that when the screen gets wider, these form elements appear side by side, and we optimize the space better for a large screen. So let's go back into the CSS, and we're going to go down to one of the media queries that we've already created. We'll go down to the media screen min width 800 pixels, and within this area we're going to add some specific rules for our form. So I'll just put these down at the bottom. I'll change this comment to say form styles since I'm not putting any gallery styles there. And what we'll do is we'll go ahead and create some form elements. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to make a rule that is going to allow the input fields and the text areas to float so that we can get the labels and the input fields to appear side by side. So I'll make a selector for contact form OLLI input, and then we'll go ahead and use contact form text area, and we'll just style those to float on the left and to have a width of 50%. If we save and we go look in the browser, you can see when I refresh the browser that now the form looks different, but obviously it's not working correctly. These are taking up 50% and they are working with a float, but not quite in the manner that we want. So we need to make some further adjustments here. So what we're going to do next is we're going to clear the LI elements. So I'm going to go back into my CSS and we'll go ahead and target the list items. And we'll just tell these to clear both. And now when we save and we refresh and look in the browser, you can see that it does look a little bit better. However, we're still not getting the appropriate items to appear side by side. So we actually need to apply a float to the labels as well. So let's do that next. The selector I'm going to use is going to be contact form. We'll use OLLI label. And we probably are going to need to also target our group head div that we're using, so we'll add that into the selector as well. And we're going to tell these to float on the left. And when we do that, you can see that the input fields now appear next to the labels, so that's a little bit more along what we'd like, but this does look a little sloppy. We need to adjust the spacing a little bit. Let's add some additional declarations to this rule. Let's go ahead and tell these to display as block level elements. Let's give them a little bit of padding on the left. Let's give them a margin on the right. Let's assign them to have a minimum width of 15%, and let's tell the text to align on the right. Okay, let's save and let's check this out in the browser now. You can see that now we have a little bit more alignment that's happening, so that definitely looks better. The next thing we need to do is we need to address the radio buttons and the checkboxes. You can see that they're a little high right here. So in order to target the radio and the checkboxes, we need to check and see what the IDs were. So on the checkbox, I used an ID of subscribe, and on the radio buttons, I used a ID of comment item. So I'm going to go back into my CSS and we'll make a selector for input hash subscribe and input hash comment item. And the rule that I'm going to use here is I'm just going to specify the height as 22 pixels. And when I save, if we go look in the browser and we refresh, you can see now how these have moved down into the appropriate location. Now this one moved, but not this one, so we must have a different ID on the question one. So let's just quickly look at that. Yeah, that one has an ID of question item, so let's just add that to our selector here. Alright, so now those are a little more aligned. I do want the spacing to be adjusted because by the radio buttons the text is a little too far away. And what we're going to actually want to do is remove the alignment on the right because the text is being right aligned right here, which is pushing this a little too far away from the radio button. So let's go into the CSS And if we look right here, we can see that these labels do not have any ID or class assigned to them. So I'm just going to quickly add a class, and we'll just call this R button labels for radio button labels. And I'll just copy this class, and I'm going to attach it down here to the label for the comment as well. And we'll save that. And then we'll come into our CSS and we'll just make a CSS selector. And so here's our specific selector that we're using. So let's just copy this part of this selector and we'll paste that on and add our little period. So we're targeting labels that have the class of right buttons, and we're going to just change the text alignment here to left. And if we go back and refresh in our browser, now those are lined up more in the way that we would like them to be. So this now looks pretty good. If we do select the submit a button, you can see how it's asking me to fill out my name. So it is asking for some information here, so I would need to type in some information. And if I try to submit again, the next field that's required is our email tag. So you can see that it's letting me know right here, please enter your email. Oh, you know what? It's actually looking at this field right here. Remember in the beginning of the lesson when I had those two fields backwards, I must have not fixed that. So here, if I look, here's the email, and I actually have the type set as text instead of email. So let's just flip-flop these guys right here. It's always good to test your stuff to make sure it's coded correctly. I'll save and we'll go back into the browser and refresh. Now when I try to submit, it lets me know that this is a required field. So I'll put something in there. I'm going to submit. It lets me know that it wants me to fill out this field. And if I just put my name, it lets me know right away I need the @ symbol. So if I add the @ symbol, it still knows that part of this is incomplete. And then if I place it in there correctly, it'll let me submit. Now, if I tried to put something in my web address and move on, and the telephone number, and I would click send, it lets me know that this is not a URL, so it's looking for something in URL format. It still doesn't recognize this as a URL. It's looking for the http://// and then it would submit the form at this point. So you can see by using those HTML type tags, it really adds to the validation of your form, and it can help in making sure that the form is recognized correctly. If I make my browser smaller, at some point it converts to our stacked layout here, and of course this is the layout that we would want to have on our smaller mobile device. So hopefully through this lesson, this gave you an idea of how you can use form elements and style them, and how you can set up a form to act responsively as well.